and thank you everyone for coming back to the second workshop. I see a lot of familiar faces. Today, to me, feels more like a reunion rather than a workshop. So I'm so glad all of you are here. Thank you so much. Thank you, IFA, for putting this together. And like very rightly pointed out by Sumana, we are in such times where use of technology has become so important, and we need to really find unique ways of utilizing things that we already have on hand. So that's exactly what I'm attempting today. Um, just to give you a brief of what we've been doing the previous session and what we will do today, I have structured the sessions in such a way, keeping three things in mind. One is the need of the hour. What is it that we need to prioritize at this given time that we are all facing, especially with the performing arts? One. Second, the practicality of things. What is possible with the devices, with the softwares that are already existent and that we can easily access? The third is to shorten the learning curve. Uh, Out of my experience, I have tried out various things, and I'm putting them all together in a capsule so that your learning curve is much shorter. So that is really what I'm hoping to do through these sessions. So let's get into the session. Like most of you all know, we will be going through a few slides, and we'll look at. By the way, today's session is we've called it an advanced session. I don't know how advanced it is really, but the idea really here is to explore certain devices and certain softwares. We are not going to talk only about freely available software or already existing devices with us today. We are going to talk about softwares that we could purchase and enhance the experience, or devices that we could purchase and enhance the experience. So that's what we are going to be talking about today, as well, apart from creating content and streaming them live, all of this. So let's get into our presentation. Okay, I hope you're all able to see the slides. Okay, embracing the digital space. So this is what we are talking about today. Just give me a minute. Okay. We are at a stage where we really need to power up the performance arts into the digital space. So we are talking about using different devices, different software, everything, but our art still remains our own art. There is no change in that. But how are we going to present it uniquely, and how can we make it effective is what we'll be talking today. And today we are going to be speaking about not so basic devices. So in my previous session, we have already spoken about the three main devices, which is a laptop, tablet, and a phone, through which we can do so much more. Today we'll be talking a little more, a few more additional devices, enhanced products, and more so with respect to the technical configurations. So that's what we'll be really concentrating on today. So here comes the first one. We need definitely a good computer. When I say good computer, I'm talking about tech specifications. We will talk about it in detail later in my slides. Of course, very high bandwidth Wi-Fi availability, or if not, at least a backup dongle. Coming to the audio part of it, we are not going to be talking about just using a phone or a laptop to conduct sessions or go live. We are also talking about having additional equipment like an audio interface, which is a very important device, mics, different kinds of mics, monitors, etc. And the video recording devices, camera, and also different kinds of camera, and what are the other peripheral aspects, like maybe a gimbal, a tripod, a kind of a tripod, all of this. First, in fact, last session, I left you all with this thought and message saying, if we have to monetize our work, we need to create good content. We remember we did this whole cycle, what leads to what. So we need to, of course, monetize our work, which means we have to have good content. For us to have good content, we need money, and for that we need to monetize our work. It's its own cycle. So today we are talking about content creation. So here I've put together three aspects to begin with: the audio, video, and the conversion. Here are a few softwares that I'll be talking about. Coming to the audio, a few have been mentioned in the slides. You can see those logos there: Audacity, Ableton, Pro Tools, Cubase. I have just put the names down. Okay, I'm not going to talk in detail about any of these softwares, for the sole reason being each of this topic is a vast subject in its own right, and I won't be really doing justice by talking about any of this in a short capsule. The best part is Audacity is a freely available software. Anybody can download and use it. On the other hand, with Ableton, Pro Tools, and Cubase, these are all professional softwares where recording studios use them, and they do come at a price. So Ableton, I think, costs anywhere between there are different ranges from 4 to 18,000 or so, and Cubase starts from 8,000, goes on till about 28,000. So this way, these are some of the options. And coming to videos, filmmaking. So we've spoken about this in the previous session as well. All our work is right now, shown through the prism of a camera lens. Finally, whatever our art form is, it could be anything. It just boils down to the editing table. It just boils down to the way it is being filmed. So that way, video creation, filmmaking, editing becomes such an important aspect in the digital world today. So here are three software that I have put here. The first one on top, it's DaVinci Resolve. Then we have Pinnacle Studio, and then Adobe Premiere Pro. Of course, there are millions of other softwares. These are the three things that I use, that I am comfortable, and which is why I have put them here. Coming to Resolve, this is a very, very good software, and the best part is it is free. For the fact that you can go to their official website, download Resolve, and we can start playing with it. Video editing is not such a tough job at all. One just needs to play with the software, get a hang of it, and we can do wonders with it. On the other hand, Pinnacle Studio, it's one of the most user-friendly software that I have come across. And even the purchase model, the latest is Pinnacle Studio 23. That is a version that they've released, and the latest one costs about 8 to 8,500. That is really not in comparison with other software. For example, Resolve, the paid version is costing us about 28,000. So that way, Pinnacle works better, and also it's very user-friendly, easy to use. And now the latest version also has nesting and multi-cam editing capabilities, which is a great boost. Coming to Adobe, I think Adobe is one of the best group of softwares. The way they design their softwares is just brilliant. They have something called the Creative Cloud. This is a monthly subscription. Each month, if you subscribe to Creative Cloud, it costs about 4,300 a month, and it comes with a host of softwares like Photoshop, Premiere Pro, Illustrator. There are many options, right from making your graphic design, editing your photos, filmmaking, animation creation. All of this is possible with this Creative Cloud. So that's something that we can explore. And again, with all these softwares, as we start exploring them, as we start playing with them, we gain knowledge, we can experiment and do so much more. Apart from that, there are several tutorials on YouTube. We just need to spend a few hours on YouTube, and these are very, very informative, and one can pick up tips from them and try it out. So I always suggest that, if you have the software in hand, we automatically start working. So this is a suggestion that I give to all of you, even if you have never attempted video editing or audio editing. I think it's time all of us did this. Here, the third sector I'll be talking about is conversion. All of us have several of our footages that's already there. We have recorded over the past few years in different formats, and now we are in such a time where we have to put out this pre-recorded content into the digital space, and it might need some amount of conversion. And these are some good tools that we can use. One is the FreeMake software, and the other is Movavi. Movavi literally converts everything, and also there is very less loss as we convert, loss in generation as we convert. The difference is quite lesser. I have also if you see, there's a logo which says FF. That is a software called Format Factory. I came across this very recently. About 20-25 days ago, I was editing a video file. It was not a very tough edit. It was just a copy paste job, very easy to do. But if I put it in any of the video softwares like video editing softwares like Premiere Pro or Pinnacle or Resolve, the entire file has to be rendered, which means it takes time. And I was working with a 1 hour 20-minute file, which I had to export and send to a stream in about 45 minutes. That was very less time. It wouldn't have been possible. That's when I researched and came across this particular software called Format Factory. What this does is it helps you cut, join video clips without a render. Okay, it just does the job so easily, and I found it very helpful, and I thought it will help all of you as well, which is why I put this point in. So this is with respect to audio, video, and conversions. Like I told you, I'm not really delving deep into it because I want to cover a few other aspects more related to streaming in this session. A brief understanding of Photoshop. Why I'm talking about Photoshop is most of us, I'm sure, will be using Photoshop or would have come across your friends and family members using Photoshop. This is where we can create good, our posters, like our event invites, posters, all of this can be created here. Not just that, we can also use Photoshop as an aid when we create our films. For example, let's say we need to animate an opening slide. Remember, I had spoken to you all about having opening slides before every show, even in an online streaming. So how do we do that, for example? So here is an example. This is from a project that I was involved very recently. This was a project commissioned by Dr. Anita Ratnam from Chennai, where she invited different artists from across the world to create their dance pieces, dance choreographies within 2 minutes in the confined spaces that they were in. And I was the creative designer and also one of the editors of this project. So for example, this was the first image that we created. We said, okay, we all agreed that this is going to be boxed, the image for box. So like you see here, it has box 1.0, dance distancing, a series of digital commissions by Anita Ratnam. We have a picture and also a logo. Fine. How do we use this maybe in a film? How do we use this in a film if I have to animate it? So what can be done is, in Photoshop, when we save the file, there are, of course, we create different layers, right? So each of the layers can be saved separate, should be saved separately as a PNG file. For example, it looks like this. So let's say I want only the box logo. So I create a PNG file and the background becomes transparent. And I save this as PNG. Another example, do you see the gray line here? Let's say I just wanted that. And I save this as a PNG. The reason we do this is using these, once we put on the video editor and add transitions, it becomes an animation. It's as simple as that. We don't really have to bother much about creating multiple layers of animation. Like, these are simple methodologies which we can use effectively. And how this will look in a video is an example here. Yeah. So I hope that was helpful in terms of what could be done with the tools that are already there with us and how that could be used. Also, the reason I was speaking about these PNG files is, one may not know how to create a PNG file. No problem. At least tell your editor, tell the person who's creating your graphics to give you these files so that you can utilize them. Because filmmakers, editors, they already know all this. As artists, we need to be aware of these things so that we can at least get the work done the way we want it to be done. Yeah. So let's continue again with the slides. Today, I'll be really concentrating much more on this particular software. It's called OBS. It stands for Open Broadcaster Software. The big plus point is it's a free software. So anybody can download it and start using it right away. That's the best part. What does it do? It helps you stream onto different platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and custom websites. All these, it helps you put content onto all of these platforms in a very seamless way. And it also has a recording option, which is great. So as we are streaming, we can also record it. On the other hand, you don't want to stream at all, you just want to record, that's also a possibility. So this acts like a multicam mixer switcher as well. live mixing and animations are possible. It's very user friendly and it supports multiple audio and video inputs. So let's explore this software a little more. What I'm going to be doing is, I'm going to be taking you on a live demonstration of OBS today. Okay. Please give me a second. I'm just trying to figure out the share my display. Okay, are you all able to watch this? This is the OBS software, and
Yeah.
here, by the way, please do stop me if you can't see something or if there is no clarity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sumana. So here it is. This software, like you see, there's a preview screen here, and on the right-hand corner, do you see these tabs here? Start streaming, start recording, studio mode, settings, exit. So these are all here. And on the right hand side below, we have the scenes and the sources. Yeah. Just give me a second. Okay, the reason I'm making you wait is I'm trying to find the share screen where I can display my screen directly, because that's how this is going to work. I can't display only my window. So that suddenly is not appearing on my system, and which is why I'm just looking for it. So just give me a few seconds and I'll be back with you. Okay, no problem. We'll work with what we have. So no worries. So here, like you see, these were some of the tabs that we have. And here, this software helps you stream onto your Facebook. For example, if you go to the settings, this dialog box opens, and here we can select on stream, and we have various, it says service, and if you click under that, there are so many options here where you can put your content out, stream it live. So here I'm choosing Facebook Live, and then it will ask you for a stream key, the dotted line here. So we say get stream key. Okay, so this was the problem that I envisioned, and it's happened. Unfortunately, if I don't display my screen here, I won't be able to show you how we will go to the Facebook page at all. So I'll just take a minute more to see if that's going to be working again. Yeah, can you see this? Can you see the Facebook page opened with create live stream?
Yeah, we can see
Great.
it now.
Yeah. So when you say get stream key, this page opens, and then we click on this further, and it goes into a live producer. Okay. And here on the left hand side, there are three options: share to your timeline, share to a page you manage, or share in a group. Okay. So generally, what happens is the events, the online events that we are conducting right now, generally happens on a page or a group. If you have to put it on a page, you need admin rights for that particular page. So let me just give you a demo of how to do it on a page. And here, all the pages that you manage appear here. So let me take you to my test page. I've called it Kirti Kumar. And once you get here, please remember, we have to follow it in the same manner that I'm doing right now, because if you skip a step and go further, you won't get the same stream key. We will be using the wrong stream key. So first we need to make sure that we select the right page or the group that we want to go live on. Once that is done, on the right hand side, if you come below, it says stream key, and there's a copy button next to it. You can click on the copy button and come back to OBS. Yeah. Sumana, are you able to see OBS now?
No, we can't.
You can't?
Not able
okay.
to. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Okay. So I've copied the key from there, and then I come back to OBS. I'm sure you're able to see it now.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Fantastic. Okay. So right now I'm improvising basically. Okay. So what happens is you come here and you do a paste. After you do a paste, you say OK to it. Now the stream key has been set on the OBS software. So anything that is played here will be streamed into the particular page that we have selected. Now, how do we add content to it? So we'll come to that. We need to have, so like I told you, there are two things here. One is a scene and the other is the sources. We need to have one scene at least, if not more. And under the scene, there are several sources that we can choose. If we click on this plus mark, this dialog box opens. And here we have so many options, to have an audio input capture, output capture, browser, color source, display capture, game capture, image, media source, etc. Coming to what we would be using maximum, we generally want to put out our videos, right? And if we have to do that, we have to click on the media source. And this dialog box opens. You can name it anything. It doesn't have to be the same name as the file. I can say test1, for example. If that is the name I give test1, I say OK. And then this dialog box opens where I need to locate the file on the computer. So I do a browse and go to the folder that I have my files. I click on this particular file and I say open, and I say okay. And before we say okay, just look at the few of the points that are there here. It says, do you want to play it in a loop? If you want to play it in a loop, tick it. Restart playback when source becomes active. So this is, I'll show you what this is. Right now it is ticked. I will show you what this is. And we have a few other options as well. Show nothing when playback ends. So these things, and then we say, and speed also. So do you want to play it in the speed that the video is in, or do you want to make it slower, faster? It gives you that option right here. Okay, and you say okay, and this appears here. Can you see this dialog box? It's appearing here. I can adjust the size to fit my screen. So if I want this particular video to be smaller, I can do this. At the same time, I can make it fit to screen, or I can even make it larger so that only one part of the video appears. Do you see this? So all this is possible. So now this is playing here. How do you know if this is also playing on your Facebook page? First, we need to start stream. Once we do start stream, yeah, do you see a green button here on the right bottom corner? That shows the health of the stream. Okay, it says that your streaming is going fine. If let's say the internet connectivity is bad, it might become orange, or it might even become red. Yeah, so right now it's already streaming, and for us to know if it is streaming there or not, we'll go back there. So I've gone back to my page. See, the same video is being played here. Yeah, it is already on. It is streaming on the live producer. If I want to go live with this content, you know this very well. There is a go live button. You click on it and you will go live immediately. For example, I'm just going to go live now. It'll say all these things. You can add a title, etc. You say go live. It'll take a few seconds, and you can see this. We are already live. Can you see this red mark here? We are already live, and people can watch us. Okay, so this is how we play a pre-recorded video live on Facebook. Okay, so I'm going to end the video. I'm going to explore a few other options. I'll come back to this. Yeah, and coming back to our OBS. Okay, I was talking to you about restart playback when the file gets active. How does the file get active? There is an I mark here. Okay, if I click on this I, if there is a line that comes on the I, which means I can't see this, it's not active, file is not active. Now, if I click on it again, it starts from the beginning and it does not continue from where we stop. Please remember this. Okay, that is the setting that we have kept this under. Now, on the other hand, let's say I bring the same file back. So I go to media source, I browse and I get the same file back. Now, before I say okay, I do not check this particular option and I say okay. Then this starts here. Okay, after it starts, let's say I stop it, I make it inactive. If I activate it again, it continues from where we left it. Okay, so this is how we can use this particular tool. Now, this is with respect to videos. Now, you might ask me, what is so great about it? What is the difference between this and a Premiere? Because we spoke about Premiere on Facebook in detail, right? The difference is this. This has much more options in terms of, let's say this video is playing and we want to add a logo, a name, a template on top of this. Then what I do is I do a plus mark again. I go to image and I say, I can give it a name so that I know what it is, logo, and I say okay and browse the file. I've chosen this logo for today. So this logo is there. Again, we can resize it. We can make it smaller, bigger. Once we do that, it can be placed anywhere on the screen. It can be placed anywhere on the screen. So let's say I want my logo to be appearing here. I do this and I'm good. So now the video is playing with the logo on it. Yeah. And again, one thing to remember is these are all different layers. Okay, it's like this, one layer on top of the other. Okay, so if you see on the sources box, logo is the topmost layer because I want that to be visible. I want that to be in front. If at all I pull the logo and put it below the media source, do you see this? I can't see the logo anymore. That is because the media source is covering the logo. So I want the logo to appear in front of the media source, in front of the video. So I pull it back here. Yeah. So simple things like this. So again, if you see here, I have used a PNG file. We just now spoke about a PNG file, right? So if we have PNG files, they come without a backdrop, without a background, and only the element that needs to be highlighted gets highlighted. And these are particularly helpful when we are running a conference, or when we are running an online festival. We want these things to come in and go out. We can do it live. This can be done live. Okay, we don't even have to pre-program it. We just need these logos, these templates, videos, everything set in place, and we can also resize them and put it in the respective areas and inactivate them. Okay, deactivate them. Once they are deactivated, they won't appear. And in the live stream, you can activate them only when you want it. So that way we have some fantastic tools. And going further, this is also something that's helpful here. It's called a display capture. I say okay to it. You can see infinity screen here. Okay. The reason being, it is this particular screen is capturing my display. So if I move this, you know what I'm talking about. Can you see this? One part of the media behind is also playing. This display is also playing. So these are particularly helpful for educational purposes. Let's say somebody wants to show something on the screen on their computer. This can be done. On the other hand, one of the ways to also send your Zoom meeting to your Facebook Live through OBS is this. We can have a display and the audio gets recorded from the laptop directly and that can be played. Okay, these are some of the options. So I'm going to deactivate this. Now coming to this, one more important aspect that I have learned while using OBS was this particular video that you are watching. It's a timer that I have kept here. This does not have any sound. Do you see this here? It says media source and this is not moving at all. There is no sound on it. So on the other hand, let's say I want to play something with sound. So I have this is a video with sound, and I again resize it. Okay, put it here. Now, if you see, the thing is on OBS, you won't be able to hear the sound. Okay, you will only be able to know that it is playing. The sound is playing by looking at the bar here. You see this? This bar is going up and down. Yeah, this particular one. Can you see this? So, which means there sound is being heard. And what happens is, if let's go live and see if we are able to hear the sound. Okay, so we are here, and I'm going to go live once again. Okay, because I stopped the stream, I need to do this all over again. Yeah. So let me get the settings right for the live, and then we'll go live and we'll check if sound is playing or not. So you all know this already. Get stream key and then go to the particular page. Okay, so we are ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start streaming this. Okay, and I will take you all to my Facebook page, and you can see that the video will get captured here. Yeah, just give me a minute. Also, one good thing about OBS is the health of the stream is visible then and there. So even as we are doing things, we know if there is some issue that's happening. It also gives you the drop frame rate. You will also know how many frames have got dropped in the process of the streaming. And then if you feel it's too choppy, you can also stop the stream and restart it. Okay, which is also one of the reasons why I say that it's very important to have a good internet bandwidth. Okay, so what happens is the moment you know that the audio file is moving in your system, you know that it is already going with the sound. Okay, and a few things that we need to keep in mind is it's always suggested that the mic is kept on mute. Do you see this? I have already kept this on mute here. Okay, there's a red mark to it. The reason being, along with the media source, whatever ambient sound is there around the laptop that you're streaming this from, even that gets captured if this is not on mute. So it is very important that we keep this on mute.
We can't see your screen.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll come back to this. One second. Okay, can you see the screen now? Yes. Okay. So I was talking about this particular mic option here. This is on red. Okay. This is what will help you keep the ambient sounds around the laptop on mute. Yeah. So these are some of the things. This way again, if you go to the studio mode, two screens appear. On one side is the preview, and that can be, so we can make all the changes. For example, if the moment we activate a source, that gets activated, here in the preview screen. And then if you want it to be sent on to the main program, we just have to move this and it appears here. Yeah. So that's what that's what can be done. Of course, this is a little more advanced. This is only, we need this only when we have multiple options and we have to toggle between programs. But in my opinion, even without the studio mode, even if you keep the studio mode off, just with single screen, lots can be done. My experience of working with OBS, I've been able to stream at least about 50 to 60 events over the last over the last 2 to 2.5 months, just using OBS. I've also tried out streaming conferences with multiple sources. When I say multiple sources, I'm talking about already pre-recorded films, readily available images, animations that were made specifically for the conference, along with a live stream of a panel discussion. So all of this put together, this means we have multiple sources, and all this could be put on OBS and it was streamed without any problems, and it was done in a seamless way. So OBS gives you this flexibility to really work out these options. In fact, in my previous session, I was at the end, we had spoken about how produced content can be put out live. I had given you examples of I for India and a few other concerts, huge concerts that India witnessed. And to do something like that, a tool that can be used is really OBS. So which means we keep all our content ready, we edit them all, we keep everything ready, and then put it together on OBS, create a timeline, and we can make a cue sheet, and one person can literally run a huge event on the day of the streaming. So this is possible. So these are some of the options. And again, like I told you, this is a free software. That is the best part of it. We just have to play with it a little more, and we can do lots more with it. Yeah. So we'll continue with our presentation now. One second. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we've I'm hoping that this has created awareness and interest in all of you to go try out OBS. I'm just going to go back to a couple of slides that we've done in my previous session, which is using the Creator Studio on Facebook. This is just as a recap. We'll just go over it very fast. So we know that we can go live on Facebook. So here, if we have a page, this is applicable only for a page. So there's something called the publishing tools. We go into that, and then we go into the Creator Studio. And once we go to the Creator Studio, we have these options of putting out a single video, upload, all of this. And let's say we choose a video that we want to upload, and here we can schedule it. We can either go, we can either publish it as a post immediately, or we can even schedule it. So we have the scheduling options here, schedule, and we can give a date and a time for that to happen. Similarly on YouTube as well, similar options available. When we go to our upload video, the same things. And we go further, we have this, we can schedule it and premiere it. So what the reason I'm talking about all this again is just that we don't really always have to bother about putting out content live, meaning we have to dance or perform, like sing, and then and there the content has to go out to Facebook or Instagram. That really is not a necessity. We can put out well produced, thought about content. So these are the tools that we have, and I think it's high time we all started using these. Coming to the next software that I'll be talking about is StreamYard. We had looked at the StreamYard in my previous session as well, but at a very basic level. Today I'll be talking about StreamYard, the paid account. Okay, it costs about $20 a month, the subscription. And why do we need to use StreamYard is, in case we have to run a conference, a panel discussion where we have live interaction amongst panelists. At the same time, you also want to play recorded content. This is a great tool, great software. So this is how it begins. You create, once you log in, and then you have this particular dialog box. It says create a broadcast, and then there's a link below. You find a button called invite. So you create the link and send it to the panelists who are going to be part of the discussion. and they can log on to StreamYard using that particular link. And once that is done, so I've just given a couple of screenshots here. There are various display options. This is a display option like how we get in Zoom. It's very similar to that, equal to sizes. There are other options as well, like this. So the main speaker gets highlighted and the other panelists can be put on the side. Imagine if there are about 5 or 6 speakers, they can all come on one side. So things like that are possible. And also the transition between each of the displays is very smooth. They have that way StreamYard is quite seamless to use. And again here we can use branding. The free version does not allow you to put your logos. It says powered by StreamYard, whereas the paid, the subscribed model does allow you to put your logos. And not just that, it also allows you to create these tickers or scrolls below. For example, here, this particular, whatever I've written here, the text, embracing the digital space and online workshop, this continuously scrolls below it. That's also possible on StreamYard. Then we can also get the names of people who are speaking in the panel to appear. And again, they have a few options like which color do you want. No, here I've chosen red, so we can choose another color. So these are some cool aspects that StreamYard has. And another very good option is StreamYard allows you to stream on multiple platforms at the same time. So this was a question I think I got even in my previous session. Can we go live on Facebook and Instagram together? Still, I'm telling you, there is no answer to it. We need to take a longer route for us to go live on Facebook and Instagram. But we can go live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn simultaneously. And StreamYard gives you that particular option. And another feature is, let's say we are already live on Facebook and we get comments, right, as we are live, and you want to highlight a particular comment on the stream itself, on the video itself. So here you get it. So you say there's one person who's commented hello, and I want that to appear on the video. And that can be done here. I say show that and it appears on the main screen. So this way the panelists can also respond to it and react to the comments then and there. So this way StreamYard is a very helpful platform, especially if we are conducting online conferences and festivals. As we are progressing into this digital online festival more and more, I see so many organizations, so many individuals doing a lot of online festivals. And for all of these people, I think StreamYard becomes an important tool. Again, these help only when you have a good template that you have already designed. So you need a designer, at the same time a person to execute this, okay, even if you can't do it. So then coming to the next big topic that we'll be talking about today, setting up a digital auditorium. This might sound very big, a digital auditorium, but for all practical purposes, for all of us, for all of you, for you and me who are artists, who are musicians, dancers, performing artists, our workspace is definitely our studio or an auditorium space. So basically today I'm talking about creating a workstation for ourselves. Okay, so I'm calling it a digital auditorium just for that. Even our online classroom is in a way, a digital auditorium. So we did speak about this in my previous session. We were talking about the checklist, the points that one needs to keep in mind when we choose a studio or a place to either conduct our classes or perform, right? So today we'll talk about how to set one for our own selves. Now comes all the tech specifications. Coming to the laptop, it'll generally be good if you have multiple laptops, especially if you're going live on a regular basis, or if you are even conducting classes on a regular basis, at least one good laptop. When I say good, I'm talking about the RAM memory 8 GB plus. 8 GB, 16 GB would be good because it's a lot of load on the CPU. When it comes to streaming, editing, all of whatever we have spoken today, it's a lot of load on the CPU. We really need the system to have a good RAM, a good graphics card, GPU, and the latest processor so that the speed is faster. So it so happens that we might have a very good editing software. Our skills might be great. If the hardware, which is the laptop, is not good, if the desktop is not very, not of very good configuration, the time taken to render a file, to create a file, is enormous. It really tests our patience. This I'm telling you out of my personal experience. Some of us have really struggled having, not great RAMs in our laptops and desktops, and that takes a lot of time. So it's really important that we have good systems. And we've been talking about good Wi-Fi. What is good Wi-Fi? If you have to quantify it, a minimum of 100 Mbps plus. That is the speed. So this is again, I'm being very conservative in putting 100 Mbps. Really, 100 Mbps really works only when one person from that one location who is using that Wi-Fi or a LAN cable is streaming something. I'm talking about only one person. If you are going to use multiple devices or there are other people using the same Wi-Fi, 100 Mbps really won't help. You need to go higher. 150, 250, or even 1 GB if that's possible. So that is what we really need to do. And please don't rely on the Wi-Fi modem, especially for important live events that you are conducting. Use the LAN cable. LAN is more efficient than the Wi-Fi modem itself. I've been told, I've read a few things. I don't know how far this is really true or correct. I've been told that the LAN really, when we use Wi-Fi modem, the speed is reduced to some extent. So it might be only about 85% of the actual speed, whereas LAN helps you give the complete speed. So please do use your LAN cable. It is, and definitely it is much more foolproof than a Wi-Fi modem, because the modem again uses electricity, whereas LAN doesn't. So it's always good. And definitely have a dongle as a backup. And also to choose a reliable network. In each area, different networks perform in different ways, and also their service matters. For example, I'll give you my example. I use ACT. It's good in the area that I live in, and also their service is prompt here. Whereas just 2 kilometers from here, I'm told some of my friends who use ACT have a bad experience. Again, it completely depends on the area, the network, and their serviceability. So please do think about these when a service provider is chosen. Coming to our lights. In my previous session, I had spoken to you all about utilizing natural light and the bulbs that we have in the house, okay, for a basic setup. And I'm very glad, I must tell you this, when I observed as soon as we all came to the session, many of you were well lit. That I felt so happy today that all of you were in a well lit position. I don't know if what I told you in the previous session, made you take the decision, or maybe you would have experimented with so many things over the last 3 weeks. But I'm really glad that many of you were well lit, and that's a great progress. So coming to today's discussion, we are going to talk about using professional lights. When we are talking about setting up a digital auditorium or a performance area, we need these lights. Here, first of all, like I told you, everything is a video mode is what we are putting out there. So we need continuous lights for filmmaking. And I've divided the lights into 3 categories: RGB, warm white, and white. This I'm talking from a dancer's perspective, as a performer. When I say RGB, this is the colored lights. RGB stands for red, green, blue. So these are the, and I'm talking only about LED power lights today. The reason being, these are power efficient. They don't consume a lot of power and very easy to handle. And the bulbs also really last long. That way the life of the light is much, much longer. So as dancers, we need the color washes, so which is great. Again, I'm not talking about a big auditorium where there are 20, 40 LED washes, and then there are other power lights, profiles, etc. Even in our own little space, it'll be great if we can have 1 or 2 RGB LED lights along with warm white. Warm white is something that gives this stage ochre light feeling. Okay, that's what we are all used to on stages, right? So it gives you that texture. And white lights, these are good when especially during classes. We don't really need warm white and RGB for our classes. Good white light which is showing you your movements very clearly is what is really needed. The same thing applies for musicians as well. The moment you talk about performance, we need to have that particular setup. So these do apply for both musicians and dancers. And coming to what would be the cost of it, it's a wide range again. LED lights start from as low as sometimes 1,500, 2,000 to about 15, 16,000 per light. So there are so many options, so we really can choose what we want to do with it. Again, if you are an institution and we have a space, it's definitely worth investing on these things, because they're definitely going to come in handy. all of this needs good power backup. You know, we all know about our city. We never know when the electricity power goes off. So it's important that we have good power backup. Power backup always depends on the load. So we really need to calculate that and get the right power backup. Coming to audio, this is so important for musicians and dancers. I am stressing on dancers as well. I'm sure all musicians know the importance of this, because finally, you know, their music has to be delivered in a good way, in a way that is well balanced. Yeah, these are the devices that's going to help you do that. Even in my previous session, I had a couple of questions, and they asked, you know, how do we use a karaoke and sing along with it and make sure the people are able to hear it in a balanced way. Audio interface becomes a very important tool. This is a device which helps you record, at the same time takes the output from the laptop and sends it to a stream or to a main speaker or wherever the output is. Again, with respect to the audio interface, a good interface can cost anywhere between 5 to 7,000 and can go on to much more. If you have multiple channels and you know, bigger brands, then it may even go into a few lakhs. But when I'm talking about our kind of setup, if we spend anywhere between 5 to 10,000, we get a very good audio interface today. And to choose the right mics, are you a vocalist? Are you an instrumentalist? Or are you a person who is giving talk shows? This really, you know, determines the kind of mic that one needs to have, or how many mics that one needs to have. Okay, so this is what we really need to talk think about. Coming to dancers, the same audio interface is also important for dancers. I'll tell you why. We might say, no, most of my performances is on recorded music. Yes, fantastic. No, we have all been told by renowned music composers and sound engineers several times that we should not be using the audio jack from our laptop to play our music. You know, it is so important. It is so important. The reason being, the audio jack is a headphone output. It is not designed to give a well-rounded, complete output into a big speaker or into a stream, which means as dancers, we need to invest on audio interfaces as well. Please remember this. Even post COVID, when you go out into a auditorium and perform, please make sure you have an audio interface along. Okay, it's a very important device. Then going further, now this this equipment is what is really going to show us to the digital world, okay, to our audiences. Cameras. When we are talking about creating a digital auditorium, it's very important to have multiple kinds of recording devices. We all know the big brands, the Canons and Nikons and all of that. If we have it, well and good. Handycams are great, okay, well and good. Apart from that, it'll be good even if you have GoPros. GoPros are easily portable. You know, we can do creative content with GoPros, and it's easy to handle again. And the output of a GoPro is also fantastic. You can even get 4K output in a GoPro, things like that. And peripheral devices along with it, using a gimbal. So gimbal uses, gimbal helps you. I'm talking about a gimbal for a phone. Gimbal can even make your phone camera record all the motion shots in a very seamless and a beautiful way. And these are all things that we can purchase, and they're going to really be helpful. For example, a gimbal costs about 6 to 10,000, DJI gimbal. And in my previous session, I had told you that laptop is the most stable device to go live and to conduct our classes, and definitely not to use our phones, right? At the end of it, I had also mentioned that phones can instead be used as a key tool in our streaming and in our classroom experience. How we can use it is, phones today have fantastic cameras. I think they have some of the best cameras. And what we can do is we can use the phone camera and connect it to our laptop and stream it from there. So we will talk about it in detail in my next slide. So before I go to that, I want to talk about two other components here, which is a capture card. So this capture card is basically, we spoke about OBS, right? I told you in OBS, you can also capture the video sources, and we can record it or stream it. So let's say there are two camera angles that you want to stream from. That can be done through OBS. So how do you connect your camera directly to the to your laptop, to the OBS? So you need something called a capture card. So the camera is connected to the capture card through a HDMI cable, and the capture card has a USB output, and that is connected to the laptop. What OBS does is, OBS can recognize this particular capture card as a webcam. So that becomes a camera source. So this way we can have multiple camera sources and record and stream. That's what a capture card does. Again, capture cards, we can get it from anywhere between 2000 to 10 to 12,000. That's a very good device to have, especially when we have decided to do more and more film-based work. Another slightly more high-end device that I've mentioned here is the Atom Mini. This is a device created by Blackmagic Design. So they have two versions of it, Atom Mini and Atom Mini Pro. What this device does is, this can you can connect 4 HDMIs into this, which means 4 different cameras, or 2 cameras, 1 laptop, 1 some other device. All of this can be connected to this particular Atom Mini. And there is one single output. Again, if you are using OBS or anything else, the software recognizes this as an external webcam. So what one can do is, we can program, mix the whole thing live on the Atom Mini itself and send the output that we want to send. So that way it is much easier. With Atom Mini Pro, you don't even need a laptop, because there is an Ethernet cable functionality in it, and from the device you can directly go live. This is the Atom Mini and Atom Mini Pro are devices particularly used for streaming. Atom Mini costs about 25,000 or so, and Atom Mini Pro costs about 50,000. The reason I'm also talking about the cost of each of this is, we can take a conscious decision of how much we can budget for, what is it that we need, and based on it, then acquire the equipment that is needed. Now, coming to this. This is the easiest. I spoke about Atom Mini, use very good cameras, costly equipment, everything. We already have an equipment in hand, and we can make very good use of it. And this is how this is. What you're seeing, the picture is a setup of today's my talk. Okay, this picture was taken just about half an hour before we started. What I'm using right now is my phone as the camera for the laptop. And that is being done with the help of a software called DroidCam. Okay, it is we can download it from our Play stores. It's free to use to begin with. Even if you have to get the paid version, it costs just about 250 rupees, and it's not really a big investment. What it immediately does is, the good quality camera from your phone can be utilized to do so much more. Now let me give you a practical example of this. I'm going to stop share and come back to this. Are you all able to see me now as I'm speaking? Yeah. So this is, like I told you, is from the phone camera using the DroidCam app that I have connected. Now I'm going to change my video source, and I'm going to show you how I look, or how my window will look if I use the camera that is there in the laptop. Do you see the difference? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, the laptop that I'm using is a high-end gaming laptop. It's an Alienware. Still, the webcam of a laptop or an iPad is definitely not great. Okay, so we might as well use this. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And again, we already have this with us. It's a tool that we all have our phones, so we might as well connect it. Yeah. That's the best part about it. Also, what this gives you, the flexibility of using this is, this phone can be kept anywhere else. Okay, for example, the laptop, if I'm using, demonstrating and teaching using a laptop, I have my for example, I'll go back to this. I can't do much. For example, so this is my area, or I have to really go back and do my entire dance movement if I'm teaching dance. Okay, then the voice is lost, isn't it? Whereas on the other hand, if I have something like this, the camera can be placed elsewhere, and we can be closer to the laptop to monitor our students. Yeah, and it's easy. Similarly, even with performances, this gives better output. And we also spoken about this, right? About using Facebook and Instagram. Already these softwares reduce the resolution of our content. We may even create content in 4K. What is finally streamed online is really a 720p. 720 resolution, not more than that. So if you are using the webcam on the laptop and things like that, the quality reduces further. So so this way, device like this and a software like this is very, very helpful. Yeah. So let me proceed further. So this is a snapshot of my home, which I've converted into a mini digital auditorium. So here you can see the tripod with the phone to hold the phone, and also on the left hand side you will see the light. Here this particular light, I'm using a halogen. Okay, it's halogen light with cutters. So this also
Sorry,
gives me.
KK, it's we can't see the full image. It's cut.
Okay. Okay. 1 second. Can you see the full image now?
Yeah, maybe that's what is there in the on the.
Yeah. That's what is there. Yes, that's what is there. So the image I have focused only on showing the tripod and the light. Okay, that's my focus for this picture. Okay, this particular light I have used is a halogen light. It also has a side cutter. You see those side flaps that will help me adjust the light to the area that I want it to focus on. Yeah, that is possible. And the second good point about this particular light is it comes with a dimmer. Generally in our auditoriums we have this faders, right? So for a slow fade in, slow fade out, that kind of effect is possible with this light. This light costs about 3,200 rupees. Okay, and the stand is another 600 or 700. So the thing is, little investments, but they make a huge difference. If we are going to, let's say we've made a decision that we are going to go live from our homes or from our dance studios or from our music classes several times, and we need this, then we can take a we can make a conscious decision of what we want and how to go about it. For example, a musician might not need a fade in, fade out at all, because they come, they sit, they perform, and they move out of the frame. Okay, we might not really need a fader like this. Whereas for a dance performance, a fader becomes an important aspect. So these are some of the, again, out of my experience, these are some tips that I'm trying to put across here so that we can pick what we want and make the best use of it. We'll come to monetization. We did speak about a few platforms in my previous session. Today we'll speak about the platforms in detail. We'll also talk about what is the rate of commission and how do we go about it and things like that. I'll first start talking about Shale. For those of you who didn't attend my previous session and those of you who don't know about Shale, Shale is a company that helps stream your performances live. And very recently, they've also started their own OTT platform. Yeah, and they also help you ticket. So I spoke to them, and these are the details. Professionally, they are very particular about two things. Shale focuses only on Indian traditional arts and literature. So they do not want to have any other content on their platform. One. Second, when you want to put out your pre-recorded shows or a show on their platform, they always insist that it has to be professionally produced content. Only then they agree to stream your content on their platform. So these are two things that they are very particular about. When I say professionally produced, it's really we know what it is now, right? We have gone through the entire presentation last session and today. It needs to be done on a certain camera with a certain resolution, with good audio balancing, good lighting, etc. Okay, so that's what and good editing, etc. They also have a team in place which will help you create film it and also edit it. Even if you have readily available content, it has to be professionally produced. The way they work is 10% on ticket sales is what they take. So 90% remains with the artist or the producer. And because they already have good database, if you want them to also help you with promotions and other services, they either take a one-time fee or a 70-30. This depends from case to case. On the other side, they have recently started their OTT platform. Till about a week to 10 days ago, they were only putting out their content, which means content produced by them. But now they have also started inviting other producers. and they have invited them to put content on the OTT platform. The way the subscription works is, one, for you to watch it, you need to subscribe to it. And so this is for the end user. The end user pays about 200 a month or 2000 for the entire year. From the artist or the producer's perspective, if you put your content on the OTT platform, they calculate the number of seconds your film has been watched. Based on that, 50% of the revenue is shared with the producer, 50% is retained by the platform. This is how they are working. Now we'll go to another popular site, which is Book My Show. We all know Book My Show. We've all used Book My Show at some point in our lives or the other. Very recently, after the lockdown, they have started their own streaming services, and there is no review of content. With Chaale, they're very particular about the genre and the way it is produced. With Book My Show, there is no review of the content at all. So anybody can go live. You can put your classes, workshops, festivals, whatnot. Everything can be put out on this platform. They charge a 12% commission on ticket sales, and they have a one-time fee of ₹1,000 as hosting fee. Going further, Patreon. I did mention this in my previous session as well. Patreon is a subscription-based model where creators can create work that can be put out on their platform, and there are patrons who subscribe to your work, and you can create different tiers. Okay, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, each with a different kind of amount. So if I'm a patron and I like your work, I will subscribe to your work by paying X amount based on the tier. And each tier person can view the content can be categorized. Some content that is available only for tier 1, some only available for tier 2, some for tier 3, etc. And the way it works is tiers and fee can be fixed by creators, so there is flexibility with respect to that. Commission varies anywhere between 5 to 12% based on the plan. They have a few different plans like the premium, pro, etc. So it depends on that, the commission. Apart from that, they also charge you a payment processing fee. Then they also have a second an associated platform which is called Memberful. Here, let's say you already have a website and you're putting content out on the website. They come and manage the membership, and for this they have a 10% basic fee, so on and so forth. So this is when you have your own website, you don't really want to put content on another platform and you want to be exclusive. That's still possible, and they enable this kind of work. YouTube, we have spoken about this in detail even in my previous session. It is one of the most effective and most popular streaming platforms in the world today. They have the largest subscriber base. For you to monetize content from YouTube, we have to really become part of their YouTube Partners program. How do we do that? One needs to have a minimum of 1,000 subscribers to the channel and 4,000 minutes of or 4,000 viewership over the past 12 months. So this is your basic eligibility to become part of the partner program. And the moment you are eligible, Google sends you an email with all the details. You can sign up to it, and also you should be able to connect your AdSense account to your YouTube channel. That's when you will be able to monetize. I've just put in a few figures here. Approximately, what is it that you can earn if you are a YouTuber? We have so many YouTube celebrities already. That's their full-time work, and they also started off as hobby, hobby filmmakers or hobby content creators, but now it has become their full-time work. So approximately $3 to $5 for every 1,000 views, approximately $18 for 1,000 ad views. Okay, how do we monetize on YouTube? It is just not based on the number of views. It is based on the kind of ads that go on your channel or on your video. And also, as the producer of the content, we have control over the ad category that we want to choose. Let's say I am a YouTuber, food YouTuber. Now I create food vlogs, and I can then have my ad categories based on food. So that way we can control what ad appears on our channel. And percentage of affiliate products. Let's say I'm speaking on behalf of another brand. The brand also pays me, and the whole thing can be monetized. So that way there are various options on YouTube as well to monetize the work. And these are a few of the other platforms: Crowdcast.io, VNC, Sangeet Sabha, Vibrance, Jixi. We have spoken about Jixi, Art Square Feet. These are some of the platforms that help artists put out their work and monetize out of it. So to all of us here, I would like to say that there are enough and more opportunities, enough and more platforms out there. we really need to see what works for us and how to make our art accessible to our audiences through that, so that we can monetize it. And when I say monetize, it's an entire ecosystem. It's just not about no one person benefiting out of it. It is an entire ecosystem. The editor who's worked with you, the filmmaker, it's very similar to a performance, right? The moment you go to an auditorium for a performance, right from the tech crew, to the ticketing partner, the costume designer, the recording artist, everybody benefits. It's an ecosystem. Today, sadly, we are in a space where we are not able to go out into the auditorium. Digital spaces are only go to, at least for the time being, and we never know for how long, and maybe this might become the new normal. So considering these things, as artists, it's high time we took a conscious decision and use these platforms, see how we can work with them. Now, this is a slide that I wanted to include in the last part of my presentation today. This is basically a recap, and also a guidelines like this can be sent to our participants, our audiences, our students whenever we do anything online. If it is a conference that we are organizing, things like, you can send this as a checklist so that the panelists know what they are doing and there are no glitches during the show. Kindly keep the by the way, we have spoken about all these things in the 2 sessions. Keep the device fully charged. Please be close to your Wi-Fi router. We have spoken about this time and again. Okay. Use headphones, earphones to reduce feedback. Again, we see so many of the conferences where there's a lot of feedback happening, mainly because they're not using headphone. It's a simple thing. We have this at home. We just have to use it. Then keeping the gallery view on so that you can watch the other panelists on your screen. This again, it's very subjective. If you want as a panelist to watch others, you can do that. On the other hand, if you want to watch another speaker, that can be possible. The reason this point has been put down here is for the person who's streaming it. If I'm the tech person who's streaming something, whatever I am able to see on my computer is what the end audience is also watching. So if I want to show the gallery view, I will keep it that way. On the other hand, if I want to show only the speaker and not the others, I'll have to toggle and make that happen. So we have to be conscious about this, just that. And to ensure that there is sufficient light, we have spoken about this, face the light or light the face. Both are important. Yeah. And to turn off the lights in the background. Again, examples were given in my previous session. So we need to understand this, because the effectiveness of the stream or the effectiveness of the communication is lost if there is a light in the backdrop. And being on mute when other speakers are presenting, this is just to avoid chaos. Yeah. And also I've added another point here. This is something that we used in our conference as well. This point was added in a panel discussion when panelists are there, to avoid overlapping. When I'm talking about overlapping, not just talking over the other person, even sounds, for example, sounds of acknowledgement. We are all so used to when somebody is in front of us, we nod our head, we say yes, oh yeah, all of these sounds. This will affect the stream. Unfortunately, when we are talking about a digital stream, all these things matter. So it will be really good if others are really silent and the person who's speaking is speaking, so that the communication is clear. And also, if you are on speaker view, the window automatically recognizes the software automatically recognizes the window from where the sound is generated. So that way, keeping silent becomes very important, because especially during a discussion, we can't always be on mute. It's not possible, right? Because there'll be sentences shared, not really paragraphs. One has to respond immediately. So it is not advisable to be on mute, but to keep silent would be very good. And if at all we are using breakout rooms in Zoom, it is good to advise the panelists and the audience about this, so that they know they'll be taken into a breakout room, and then they'll be coming back to the main hall of the discussion. Coming to the classrooms, a similar guidelines could be sent to our students as well. This way, the communication is very, very impactful. Things that could be, apart from whatever has been said above, mute yourself while logging on. It might be, let's say a student comes in late to the class, and if they're not on mute, it will disturb the class. So we can always ask them to be on mute while they're logging in itself. And to keep the settings in speaker view. This is important for a classroom, because especially during a talk show or when a musician is performing, the teacher is performing, playing and singing it for the students, or the dancer is dancing, it is good for the students to view them in full screen. Okay, they need to be on speaker view. And also if they're on gallery view, it is very disturbing, right? Because others will also be performing, dancing, they'll be moving. It is quite a big distraction. So especially for students, they should be advised to keep it on speaker view so that the teacher's frame is fully visible. And to make it a habit for them to raise a hand or leave a note in the chat box for doubts and clarifications. So this way, all the aspects of the conferencing app can be well utilized. These are a few points. I told you about this, right? The digital space is so fast; it is evolving at a rapid pace. A few pointers from 3 weeks. The session that happened 3 weeks ago to now. WebEx. When we spoke last, WebEx was still a free software for the basic plan. The free plan, the timing was unlimited. Now, I have just received a mail last week, about 10 days ago, and for the free plan, they have limited the duration to 50 minutes per meeting. This is a platform started by very famous Carnatic singers Ranjani and Gayatri. They have started this platform called voncerts.com. Here again, they have already put out their concert. I think it was titled Varshaya Varshaya. They have put out their concert. Again here, if you go to one of their interviews, they very clearly mentioned the importance of having well-produced content, well-produced concert available for audiences to watch. It's again a subscription-based thing. They have produced their concert, they have filmed it, they have balanced the sound very well, and it's already been put out on the platform. So that is an improvement from the last 3 weeks. This is the big news that we all got, isn't it? JioMeet. So we have our own Indian brand video conferencing platform that they've started. It is easy to use. It has features very similar to Zoom. At the moment, the best part is the free version that they have given has unlimited, or they say 24 hours meeting. I don't know who's going to be really using a 24-hour meeting at a stretch, but they have made it that way. So JioMeet is there. Only thing that is not available is streaming to YouTube and Facebook is not included at the moment. But I'm sure that's a third-party integration. I'm sure they should be able to do it very soon. So this is the big news that we have had. JioMeet in the last 3 weeks. And digital space, yes, we have spoken about it, and now we can very happily say that we have embraced it. And the situation right now is it's so uncertain. The surroundings, the atmosphere is so uncertain, and the way performing arts is being presented and consumed has changed drastically, and it is all moving at a super fast pace. And with all this happening, so much happening around us, one might how do we really focus our energies and keep a calm mind and get into creative endeavors? I believe that it is a challenge, and as creative individuals, we should be able to take this challenge head on. And we can do this by exploring the possibilities the digital world offers, the myriad possibilities. And I really hope my 2 sessions have piqued the interest for all of you to explore these options and much more, and make the best use of it. Again, if we have to tide over this, if we have to win the situation, we can do it only as a community. And all of us artists are a strong community. Very recently, unfortunately, we've all been listed as unessential services, but it is really the effort that we put in to make ourselves mean to the society. I know we don't have to really go out and make a point. The whole idea really is to get our content available to our audiences in the right way that it has to be. So with this, I finish my presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you, IFA, Sumana. I've had a lot of fun, and also it's been a learning experience for me, putting all the points together. Thank you so much. And now I open the session to all of you. Your comments, observations, questions are welcome, and to the best of my abilities, I will answer them.
Thanks so much, Kirti. This was again another fantastic session. I think we've already had a few questions coming in the chat box. Can I request please ask them here directly? Maybe it's helpful to all of us.
Okay. Yeah. Now I'm opening the chat box now. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think Anisha has a question.
Yes.
And then Sudhi also has a
Okay.
question.
Yeah. I'm going over the questions. So I have a question
Yeah.
from Ramya here. Is the OBS software Mac friendly? What if you have a JPEG given by the organization? Okay. OBS, from what I know, is Mac friendly, Ramya. So we can use it on our Macs. And also coming to the question of what if you have a JPEG given by the organization? I didn't understand that.
Okay, you were mentioning about the PNG file that was to be used. So what if a logo is in the JPEG? Do you need to convert it completely into a PNG, and then again resolutions matter and things like that? So
Yeah.
if you can just on that.
So coming to that, so we just can't convert it into a PNG, meaning there's no, it doesn't serve the purpose. Okay, so what we need to do is we have to take it on Photoshop or CorelDRAW or one of these softwares and select the background part, make them disappear. Okay, there's a select tool. Again, this is in detail Photoshop. So we have to select that part, delete the background. We need to keep only the highlighted element that we need as the logo. That needs to be saved as a PNG file with a transparent background. Once that is done, yes, again, from there, whatever I told you before is fine. It can be used that way. Yes. And we have Anisha. Does the OBS allow to stream on various platforms at the same time? Right now, it allows you to stream on one platform, one link, but that link can be a custom RTMP link, which is, for example, there are streams like live stream and other RTMP streams. If we send OBS, the output from OBS to that link can further divide it and send it to 2 streams. It is a possibility. It is a lengthy process, but it is possible. We will take all questions. Okay. How is the sound quality on Zoom through StreamYard? Sound quality of Zoom through, I didn't get this question right. Amrita, why should we use Zoom through StreamYard? Can you please elaborate on that? Is Amrita here?
Yeah. I was just trying to understand the setup. I might be wrong asking this question because I thought using StreamYard, we will be, I mean, this is my confusion. I may be wrong, as I said.
Okay, sure. Okay, I get your point then. The reason I asked you was to just to understand if you already tried it and if it didn't work for you.
No, I haven't yet tried.
Okay, no problem.
But Zoom is very bad. Sound quality is very bad. This is what we are all experiencing, and that is why I've asked you that question. Maybe I'm wrong, but
okay.
I think you understood what I want to say.
I did. Okay, I would first of all like to slightly differ from what you said. Of the different platforms that I have used so far, Zoom has been the best for me personally. Okay. Also, the reasons being, I teach online through Zoom, and we always have to play Lyra or our music at the background and talk over it and tell the bowl over it. Okay. So keeping that in mind, I have found Zoom very, very helpful. WebEx, we did have, Ramya and I, both of us had problems in WebEx. Yeah. And on the other hand, Google Meet, I was talking about this last week in my previous session, there is a lag. I'm sure one more thing is all these platforms are improving on a day-to-day basis. Okay. There is no hard and fast rule that we should be using this or that. But in my opinion, Zoom is good at the moment. And I'm hoping Jio will get better. So
yeah, let's hope so.
That. And also coming to the other question of using Zoom on StreamYard, I see no need for us to use Zoom on StreamYard. For the sole reason being, StreamYard already is allowing you multiple windows. The paid version allows you up to about 10, if I'm not wrong. And 10 windows meaning 10 people can come and participate in your panel discussion. And that can be put out, streamed on another software, on another platform like YouTube or Facebook or
correct.
LinkedIn or Twitter.
That is why I asked you about the Zoom thing. I was wanting to ask you in the same manner. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah. Whereas with Zoom, if it is a closed meeting, like what we're having today, we can't do this on StreamYard. Okay, that's because it allows only 10 people, even in the paid version. Whereas in Zoom,
Okay.
it allows up to 100 and so on and so forth. So that's the difference. If it is streaming, go for StreamYard. If it is a meeting, class, etc., please get into Zoom.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next. Okay, we have Sudhi. Kirti, how copyrights works for when we go live? Please put some light on it. Okay. I'm not very aware, but I'll tell you whatever I know about copyrights, Sudhi. Especially when it comes to film music, because this is an area that is very well tried and tested. Okay. With film music, the way shows were happening is one needed to have a PPL, an IPRS, and licenses like this to run a show. Like let's say a band comes and performs in Chaudaya or in Marriott or any of the platforms. The event organizer had to always purchase these licenses. Okay, and that goes to the label, like a T series or a Z or whatever. It goes to the label, some percentage of it. This is how it always worked. With online content, when it comes to YouTube, the YouTube has an automatic mechanism. If you use particular music and you have danced on it, or you have done something on it, you cannot monetize it, because whatever happens from there goes to the company that has rights over it. So that way YouTube is very clear. With Facebook, I'm not sure. Okay, anybody and everybody is putting all kind of content right now. I don't know how that works. I have not been able to understand it at all. One. Second, let me come to the other sector. Let me come to classical arts. I had spoken about this in my previous session also. What goes online is there for posterity unless you delete it. Okay, this is especially for dancers. With musicians, what happens is you sing and you come out of it. Okay, it doesn't matter even if the content stays. For example, if I like a singer or an instrumentalist, I will get him back only because I like him or her, right? Whereas with dance, what happens is I put out a video, it stays there. I don't want the same person to come and perform the same piece again for me, because I can always grab it from there and put it in my stream. No, it is not that difficult. That is point number one. So the performance opportunities go lesser and lesser and lesser. One, if we have to look at it in one way. Second is, I have used a particular track for my performance. Have I? By the way, all 90% of the tracks used by dancers are either self-created by them, by putting in a lot of time, money, effort into creating these recordings, or they are purchased from another person who's done the same, right? So now we really have to be conscious about this. If I put my music out there, I can, not just me, anybody here, and download that file in a click of a button today. In one click, which means that file is readily available to the public. Are you as a dancer okay with it? Point number one. Second thing here is, when you, let's say you have purchased that particular track from somebody else, have you also purchased the track keeping this in mind? Have you informed that person that you're going to be using the track for an online streaming? Maybe the person has given it to you only for your stage shows, like a proscenium shows. You don't know what the thing is. Because it's an unorganized sector, we have never really thought about all these things in detail. But it is high time we start thinking about this, because copyrights going further is going to become the big deal in the performing arts. It's going to become very big, no doubt about it. If YouTube can crack it, I'm sure Facebook can crack it. Instagram can crack it. Why not? Right? Now, there's another, now I would like to tell you this also. When I was going through Book My Show guidelines for going live on their live streaming platform, they have mentioned one thing. We will protect your copyrights for the content. They have encoders in their platform. Apparently, that's what they're claiming. They have encoders on their platform, which will not allow the end user to download from the stream directly. So they have enabled this. So we need to really look at these things as well when we go live. Okay, it is very important. Yeah. So Sudhi, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, Kirti.
Okay.
Hello.
Madhuvanti. Thank you, Madhu. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Yes, Sudhi.
Yeah, I think Balmurali Satilana will be going to mute.
Yeah, sure. There is a possibility. Yes.
Yeah.
There is a possibility. That's what. So we never know, how this works. The reason being, the classical arts, especially, it's an unorganized sector. Okay, we have never really spoken in detail about copyrights. How many of us have really patented or have not patented, have put the copyright on our pieces, okay, or intellectual property? How many of us have really gone registered ourselves as our pieces as intellectual property that belongs to this person or this organization? We have hardly done that. Okay, so it is if we go the legal way, it is a long battle, very, very, very hard to fight. And very interesting. Sorry, I have to log off. Okay, this has definitely inspired me to. Thank you. Okay, so yes, I think these were the questions in the chat box. If anybody else has any other observations, comments, please go ahead. It doesn't have to be only a question. So we can also use this time to share something that we want to do. Yes, Ramya ji.
So this might be a very basic question for you, but this is something I have always had a problem with. So when you have to convert a video to a smaller size for various reasons, maybe to send it to somebody, what is the best format to convert it so that I don't reduce the quality of the video? The same thing with audio also.
Okay.
Which is the best format?
Sure. The moment, one thing we have to be very clear about this: the moment we convert from, let's say, I'll call it Tilana A for just to get it right. Tilana A is there. Okay. Now it is in wave format. I'm talking about audio here. It is in wave format. I want to convert it. Wave files are generally big.
Huge.
The wave files are generally huge. And if I can't send it on WhatsApp or easy access. If I want to convert it to MP3, there will be a generation loss. Whether we like it or not, there will be a generation loss. A becomes A minus for sure. Okay, but there are good encoders. The better the software. For example, Cubase and Ableton and Pro Tools and all of this, they help you convert the file to a lesser version, to a reduced file size, keeping the same quality to the best extent possible. Which is where using a good software, a paid version of a software, becomes very important. Same applies for video also. Similarly, it's very similar.
But what is the format, especially for video? Audio, we know usually it is wave to MP3.
For
Mostly.
Video, MP4 is very good at the moment. So generally we get .mov files. They are huge files or AVI files when it's directly from the source, from the camera. We get something called XMF or something like that. MXF, sorry, yeah. MXF files is what we get from the camera directly, and that is put into an editor and it's converted. Something very easy to use that plays on every player is an MP4 today. No doubt about it. MP4 or an MOV, it plays on everything. No doubt about that. These are the formats that we can convert it into.
Yes. And last session, I had asked you this question.
Yes.
When you have a Zoom, say,
I tried, Ramya ji, yes, I tried
Yeah.
this. There was no option on the phone.
That's only on laptop you can go
Only on
live.
laptop. Yes, I tried.
That's
Yes.
it. Thank you, Kirti.
Thank you so much.
Kirti, there's a question from Astha. Does OBS allow us to edit videos?
Does OBS allow us to edit videos? Can we play multiple videos from OBS together, like a song video and a dance video on 2 separate files? But yes, it is possible. Yes, all this is possible. OBS doesn't allow us to edit videos. We can't edit on OBS. We have to edit it outside, and it can be played. So from here, the way I am assuming this question is, can we play multiple videos from OBS together? Yes, it is possible. I showed you on screen, right? So we can make the video big, small, like by dragging the red border around it. It can be made big, small. So you can also add another source. We can have 2 videos playing simultaneously. That is possible. So that can be kept on the screen in such a way that 2 videos are there, one next to the other. And also something I forgot to show you today was, on the red border, if you press the Alt key and move the sides, the video can get cropped. So it doesn't have to be full. Okay, it can get cropped. So that is also an option that is available. So especially when we want to show 2 videos together next to each other, that is possible. We can crop one part and keep so that the screen is able to show both the videos together. Yes, it is possible. Then been any hacks or services which allow different voices to sing together, simultaneously? I'm not sure, Anisha, about this. I don't know if uh, you say sing together simultaneously. Are you talking about being in the same geographical location or in different geographical locations?
Different geographies. So like in a choir, you have, like, I am part of a choir, and I think that is something that we will be missing for a long time now.
Ah.
So I know a lot of people have been doing different things on YouTube and maybe like through Zoom. But like, if you have had any experience of any technology
Okay.
other than pre-recording, if there are any options.
Yeah, just for the fact that there will be a lag between the two sources, we can't do a choir together. It's not possible at all. Okay, but all the videos where you see multiple people coming in short windows and singing, it's all pre-recorded, it's all produced. That is possible. You know that already. No, we have spoken about it, edited. But from whatever I have come across, I don't know of any tool which will help you produce music from different areas simultaneously without a lag. No. We had a problem to work on StreamYard on a mic. Is it rectified? Ramya?
I meant Mac, Kirti, Mac.
Mac. Is it rectified? Ramya, like I'm not a Mac person. Okay, I don't use
I know.
Apple devices at all. I did Google about it though. Some people said they were able to use StreamYard very well from Mac. So maybe it was the device's fault. I'm not sure. See, I can't really comment on it because I'm not an expert. I don't know Mac at all. Yeah.
I also had another question, KK. On the OBS software, can you make a playlist of videos that you can play one after another seamlessly?
Absolutely, that is possible. Okay, we can. That is the best part about OBS. We can create multiple scenes, and in each scene have multiple sources. So that way it can play one after the other. It can go on like that.
Okay.
And of course, one thing about OBS is we need to be there to monitor. It is a hands-on software. One needs to be there. It's not like a playlist. It's not like a Windows Media Player where you put out X number of files and it plays on its own. That is not there. But again, the reason for them to develop OBS is this: for one person to sit and seamlessly run conferences, events online. By the way, OBS is now, with the lockdown and all that, we have all started using such softwares. OBS is used mainly by gamers. Gamers use OBS quite a bit. The way they use it is on one side they'll have multiple monitors, right? So one side they'll be playing the game. That monitor is connected to the OBS, and as they are playing, there is live commentary that they give. So they have a mic set up there. These gaming consoles are huge. You should really look at them. They're so it's exciting to watch them, and these are the people who actually use OBS much more than all of us. The thing is, it is there, the software is there, we can use it effectively too. That was the point that I was trying to make clear, really.
Srijan is he's sharing a tip for musicians.
Yes. So Srijan says, sharing one tip, I have been sharing with colleagues at musicians. Okay. When sharing audio files on WhatsApp, record as MP3 and share on WhatsApp as a document, not as WhatsApp audio. This increases WhatsApp's file size limit from 16 to 64 MB and also sends the MP3 as is. WhatsApp does not compress it anyway. Wow, this is good. Good information. Thank you so much for this.
It's the same even with pictures. Like if you send pictures, the 2 MB pictures, they're still saved instead of your 500 KB pictures. On WhatsApp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, that's right. Yeah, these tips are really helpful because we use these, WhatsApp and everything on a day-to-day basis, right? For everything today. So that's why it's helpful. Can we record a Zoom meeting through mobile? Yeah, we can record because it gives record to the cloud option. So we can record it from the mobile as well. It's possible. This was Bhakti. Yeah.
Is there any platform for us to stream to Instagram?
There is a platform, Surya. It is called InstaFeed. Okay. So InstaFeed is a platform. So what you do is we connect OBS to InstaFeed, and that takes your stream to the Insta stories. So that way it is possible. Again, with InstaFeed, the first 5 streams they give us free, and then they have a package: 5 stream, 10 stream, 20 stream. It costs about $5, $10, $20, things like that. They have their packages, but it is possible.
Vertically or horizontally, they have a problem with Instagram.
Okay, so in fact, we had spoken about this in the previous session, Surya. When we go, especially when we stream through OBS onto Instagram, it comes as a horizontal only unless you want to turn it around. Okay, because OBS, like you saw, is a 16:9. That's a standard screen size. Of course, if you go to the video settings, output settings, you can work around all that. We can even change all those things. All that is there. Okay, but generally it is a horizontal landscape mode is what we see. On the other hand, if we go live on Instagram from our phones itself, okay, this is what most of us are doing. If we go live from our phone, I still would suggest going landscape unless the choreography demands a portrait mode, or unless the setting of the music band demands a portrait mode. Especially with music, I would always prefer watching it horizontally, because there'll be 2-3 of them, or 2-3 of the band musicians, right, either sitting or standing, and the landscape gives a better view than a portrait. With dance, it depends on the choreographer. We might have one choreographer who wants to do something with portrait mode. Yeah, then it makes sense. Then again, what to do is, I know the reason you're asking this, Surya. The comments come this way, right? That is the only issue. Again, this was a session that I had given in my previous session. When the performance is started, when the performance is happening, please turn off the comments. That way, it is not disturbing for others who don't want to comment or who may not want to watch your comments, right? So that way, it's good. Then once you finish your performance, come back when you are doing your Q&A and interaction with the audience. Turn the comments on. That way, you can watch it either this way or that way. That doesn't matter. Yeah. I hope I've answered that question. Yeah.
Any other comments, feedback, or if anybody wants to share something?
Yes.
I just have one last question.
Yes.
So you told us about this bandwidth. We need to have a good internet connection, but and said 100 Mbps is the minimum, you said.
Yeah. Yes.
But like you rightly said, according to the area, the speed is fixed, whether it is ACT or Airtel, whatever. So the area I am living in is not giving us more than 40.
Oh.
So at such times, what do we do? Is there any other option? One question. Another question is, you said connecting it through a LAN cable, connecting to the network. It is definitely much better than Wi-Fi, is what you said,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
suppose I have a LAN cable, I won't be able to move around, right?
Again, today I spoke very specifically about using a laptop.
Even if it is a laptop,
Okay.
it has to be fixed. If the cable is in one place.
Correct. You can move around only till where the LAN cable can come along with
Exactly.
it. Correct.
So
Very correct. On the other hand, even if you're using Wi-Fi, closer to the Wi-Fi, better the output. So we still cannot really move around much. That is the fact. We shouldn't be moving around much, even if it is Wi-Fi.
Okay.
One. Second, coming to what can we do if we don't have good speed. Okay. This is something that I tried also. It so happened that one of the days I had my ACT didn't work and I had to go live. I had to do an important live stream that particular day. I used my phone 4G. 4G is very good. 4G is very good. We can use 4G. There'll be occasionally there will be some drops. Some frames might get lost, but it is still better than not being able to stream at all, isn't it?
Okay.
So 4G is, yes, good, no doubt. Especially today with in a city like Bangalore with so many towers, and the network providers are doing a good job with it. So no doubt it's good. Or the best thing to have is a dongle. Please get a dongle. That is the best thing.
But dongle does not give so much speed. Does it?
At least better than a phone. Because again, dongle is specifically the device is created to provide internet, isn't it? That is the whole idea.
Okay.
And with dongle we can move around. That's another thing.
Yes, but the speed is not so much in that also.
Speed is not. Yeah, I'm just saying
it's not as much as a broadband.
Yeah, it's not as much. No.
Okay.
Dongle always comes as a backup and not really the main source.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I think we can wind up for today.
Yeah, Kirti.
One more?
Yes, Sudhi. Yes.
Yeah.
I think last question.
Yeah, last, and I think I want to share something from this one. First of all, I would like to thank Sumana ji for organizing such a wonderful webinar to give more information from a very good technical person, Kirti. And also today we have joined Surya also. Yeah, from the first, I think when lockdown started, all our technical person would have been going for live and how can we help it, all those things came to our mind. So in that process, I too have started to go about and search for so many things, as I am a photographer and a videographer professionally. I have experienced that OBS and Streamlab OBS, I think.
Yes.
Both are very good software to begin, and it's very useful, friendly for a regular person who is not in all of a sudden to sit in front of a computer and to do lot of things. I think Kirti will agree with that one.
Absolutely, Sudhi. OBS, that way, no, which is one of the reasons I took so much time today on OBS itself, and not really, I didn't really bother about anything else much today.
Yeah.
Okay, my whole idea of today's session was, one, to deal with OBS, to learn OBS, to create awareness about OBS. Second is how to create a digital auditorium or a digital classroom for all of us, because this is our workstation. How do we set up our workstation? We keep hearing about Google and Intel giving incentives to their employees, extra money and things like that to help them set up their workstations. As artists, we have to do it for ourselves, and we might as well do it in a good way. And we might as well equip ourselves, empower ourselves by doing all these things.
Yes, yes. In this time of from first session to second session, getting some inputs from first session, I just experimented with OBS.
Okay.
I think I have uploaded a few videos. What I was doing that, sitting in the home environment, I am able to edit only irrespective of the internet quality, all those things. I think I can share the link. You can play it, Kirti?
Yeah, you can share the link, and so that all of us can look at it at their leisure. Yes.
I think you can share it in the chat box and
Yeah, I've shared it.
Yeah.
In this, what I've done is I've taken from the live feed only using the OBS. Why? Because when you go live, we will be having normally the wide angle, that's all.
Correct.
To see a 1.5 hours program only with the wide.
Very rightly said, which is why OBS also gives the option to have 2 video sources.
Yes.
Okay, so we can have multiple camera, toggle with it, use it in such a way that the wide shot is also covered, the close-ups are also covered.
Here, I think I have used only one camera, that is whatever I am getting, using the window capture. Can we play? It's okay.
No, now I think.
I think we'll have to wind up this session, Sudhi.
Okay, okay.
I think, but everybody has the link here, so they'll be able to watch it.
Yes, yes. Okay, okay.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. For Ramyaji's question, there is an option called Wi-Fi enhancer. You get a gadget for everyone. I think in our living room or where the modem is there, we get the proper Wi-Fi this thing. For other rooms, if you buy this Wi-Fi enhancer, you get the same whatever the Mbps, 50 Mbps in each and every room.
Right. Yeah. It's called a booster.
It's available. Yeah. It is a booster, Wi-Fi booster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Surya.